Hello and welcome to the Exchange Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Hirschberg, Director of Digital Community Engagement at Exchange Lab. Today I'm joined by Peter Watkins. Peter, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Ari. So I'm Peter Watkins. I'm working as the Program Executive for Pan-Canadian Digital Trust and Credentials with an organization known as the Institute for Citizen-Centered Services.
Thanks. Today we're going to be answering the questions we didn't have time to get during the live stream, which include questions like, isn't Facebook already doing this? So why can't we just let Facebook take care of it? Will digital credentials stand the test of time and be able to keep up with the rapidly evolving technology? One that we've been asked often is, what about the longevity of digital identities? Will these survive the passage of time and the rapid changes of technology? Okay, so without further ado, welcome to the Exchange Podcast. Peter, what do you think this was going to be like before you started?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. You don't often stop and kind of think about that. I find that the nature of the work where I have interaction with, leadership, levels of leadership in provincial, territorial, and federal jurisdictions in Canada, all of whom are aiming to collaborate around solutions for this. And I think the interesting reflection that I have is how I think making forward progress really calls on the use of what I would call modern methods. So I think there's emerging areas that are ways of being successful generating positive outcomes, accepting that you're operating in more of an ecosystem of independent actors. And I think it's been important to embrace those ideas and accept that sort of is the landscape and that is the nature of the challenge. Because it proves that there's very little that you can mount and move in a direct sort of straight line. The landscape is just too diverse, too distributed, and the actors are independent, and each of them has their own context. And so, conversations can be engaging, and if you were to write words on a whiteboard, you could all agree to them. But when people leave conversations and go to do things, they're confronted with the realities in their jurisdiction, in their context, in their way. And so I think, success comes from facilitating their continued interest in collaborating and trying to build moments of alignment in them where they can move forward more easily. So I think it's a very interesting and challenging context to be working in.
Yeah, I like how you painted the picture of the complexity. There's a lot to think about to do such big scale.
Right.
So what was it really like?
Well, I think it's been challenging, and in some ways there are some clear reward moments for. There's sort of moments where there's a celebration of success that the group has found a way to come together, found points of agreement, and so those are rewarding. And there's a type of commitment and interest from the people that are participating, where it sort of brings out some of the most positive aspects of public servants, and I think that's all very encouraging. So in that ways, I find it both challenging, but at the same time, there are some clear moments of achievement that you can feel and that you can share with others. So that's been good.
Great, and I guess one of the reasons why we're here today. In regards to post-secondary accreditation, do you see a place for verifiable digital identities for post-secondary institutions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So if you think of part of the way to think about digital credentials is to think of the chain of events or the connected dots that extend from something. So if you were to ask the question, how does someone get to a place where they become a licensed chiropractor? You go, oh, well, let me tell you, they had to be accredited. Well, by who? Well, by the college. Well, how did that? Well, they had to go to school. It's like, oh, where do you go to school? Then they had to have their certificate of that they completed the training, and the institution had to be accredited to offer the, so it's like, oh, there's a whole kind of chain of trust there. And today that chain of trust manifests in paper and plastic documents.
And we trust it.
Yeah, no, it is trusted. I mean, it's clear. Like, there's legislation, there's policy, there's programs, there's certifications, there's licensing, there's regulate. Like, the whole thing is there. There's actually nothing wrong with that. You say, well, we just need to modernize that so that for people that need it, they can prove that has all happened in using digital objects, so trusted things. And I think one of the easy trends that you can see, it's kind of the counterpoint to this, and I kind of used it in the video that we had, is like, you can see that people need these government issued things in digital form because they're being trained today to make their own digital versions. There are websites or services that ask people to go get their paper documents or their plastic documents, take photographs of them with their smartphones, and then upload them. Well, that's about needing a digital version of the government issued thing. It's not digital, so I got to go get the paper version, and then I got to turn it into it. But it's just a photograph at that point. It's not actually a certificate anymore. It's just a photograph of a certificate. And so you can just imagine the challenges you have with integrity and trust and privacy and all, so we're just looking at that and say, oh, that is a clear signal that people need better. And you don't need to pursue this with the notion of getting rid of all of the paper and plastic and all of that kind of stuff, because people still need those things for a variety of purposes. So it's not a negation of paper or plastic or the existing processes or any of that. It's more those things were not designed, and they do not do a good job enabling the modern needs that people have to engage in digital services. And so this is like an additive kind of modernization that we think needs to be in motion. And your original question was post-secondary, and we think, yeah, I mean, and you can start running the bases on that. I mean, there's myriad types of certification programs and trade programs and SEAL programs, and there's like gas fitters and welders and architects and lawyers and accountants, and it's just like, oh my goodness. And so you would stop and you say, well, all of that must be important. Like, it's all there for a reason. You go, it's all there for really good reasons. You're going, okay, so it matters. It's really important. You say, but in the digital world, you can't get any confidence about any of that because we're trading in paper and plastic documents. And so, that's more the driving motivation where we think the benefits can come from. If people could set about, asking and getting trustworthy, privacy respectful answers to those types of questions, we think there can be a litany of improvements made throughout the economy for that type of stuff. That's the concept.
Yeah, the value is very high, and I like how you said it's a complement. It's a complement to what we already have.
Right.
I really like this next. Well, I like all the questions, but this one really caught my eye. Given that business entities like Facebook are already solving this problem, why does government have to do anything? What's wrong with having Facebook solve all of our digital challenges?
I think there's a couple of problems with that. Well, problems. You say, I probably need to speak more personal. Just in my own. I think there's a couple of challenges with that. So, in this conversation about digital credentials, and as it relates to government issuing authorities, there's no substitute for the government issuing authorities. So Facebook is not an authority for the types of credentials that we're talking about. They're not an authority over whether your birth was registered. They're not an authority as to whether you've been licensed to drive a car. They're not an authority as to whether you own the land title on your property. They're not the authority on these things. And when I spoke earlier about we've had to conform to the limitations of the way computers have operated, one of the things that's gone on that I think is a dysfunction is that it has, to some extent, necessitated the need for some third party to step in and start standing for and doing things that they're not a natural authority for. Now, there's a logic for why they're doing it. They're filling in a hole, that like there's a gap, and kind of step into that. But personally, I think we're better served if the foundational authority would, to some extent, do the thing that they do, but do it for the modern digital age. So it's like shouldn't be much dispute over who the issuing authority really is. You can look at the law and the regulation and so on, and they issue the thing in paper or plastic form today, and they say, well, could you just modernize and make a digital version of that? And then other people, other actors in the economy can figure out how to provide services given that, start adding value and improving things, versus taking a burden onto their shoulders over attempting to, quote, and this is clumsy language and we need to pivot away from it, but quote, having confidence over who someone, quote, is, which, I have found that it takes years to even ask that question correctly, because all of those questions have to be asked in a context. It's like, what do you mean? Who is? It's like, do you mean, does the person have a license to drive a car? Do you mean, like, you have to be in a particular transaction? So in terms of these sort of industry titans, Facebooks and Googles and Apples and Microsofts and Amazons and all that type of stuff, there's obvious roles that they can play and services that they provide. But I think we're better served by enabling the kind of foundational authorities for issuing these kind of base objects, and then make sure that we're issuing those things directly to the citizens, for people to have and hold and be empowered to use. And if they choose for some reason to use some of their credentials or parts of their credentials in services that Facebook has to be operating, I mean, that's their choice. That's what people want to do. That's fine. But having a hard dependency on those organizations can be kind of problematic.
Thank you. What about the longevity of digital identities? Will these survive the passage of time and the rapid changes in technology? It's one thing for the issuing authority to keep pace with the change in technology, but what about the systems of those who need to verify the digital identity? More needs to be considered than just the issuance of these credentials.
Yes, I agree that more needs to be considered than just the issuance. So that's a very true statement. I think the right way to think about digital, and for someone who wants to think about digital credentials, I think the key word in that is digital. And one of the things that I've learned over the years now is that the rate of change that we're experiencing in the digital realm is, it's unceasing, it's nonstop, and B, in many ways, it feels like it's speeding up. And so I think people need to engage in this, knowing that the finer aspects of the digital solutions are not durable. They are temporal. They are limited, and their shelf life is kind of limited. And so I think people that are pursuing solutions, and I know that the engineers are thinking about these topics, where they believe it's very important that you find a way to make investments for methodologies that create agility, so that and I'll say there's a particular corner. Easiest way to see this is in people that are aware of the potential limitations of various cryptography models, and they're while people are inventing cryptography models, there are other people that are inventing ways to break cryptography models, and it can turn out as saying, well, you're going to have to plan for change and improvement and modifications and upgrades, and it's dynamic. So I think you have to come into this with the kind of expectations that this is not a stable landscape. You can't just build the project, complete the project, launch the system, and then run it unchanged for 10 years. Or you're going to have to come into this and saying, we may have to get into a release strategy. We may need to have to make releases monthly. They wouldn't be major releases, but you may have to have a way to just keep it fresh, keep it moving along. And that's going to be a challenge, because to some extent that has to happen on all sides of this. So the question was about, well, what about the verifiers? And you go, you can't just make one type of credential in 2023 and expect it's going to run unchanged, for 10 years. That won't be true. I think enough people know that it's like, well, that's actually not going to work that way. So given that, I think it's better to plan right from the beginning that to some extent, this is a bit of a journey of discovery. It's going to be subject to change. And that as things change, it's not bad. It's not an interruption to our plan. It's not, we don't have frowns on our faces because something changed. It's like, yep, we knew stuff was going to change. We planned for that. That's good. We're ready. We're able. I think that's the better path to go down on this. I think we're probably just at the front edge of feasibility for getting getting started. So in terms of what a finish line might look like, I wouldn't know what a finish line looks like. I don't know anyone that really does know what the finish line looks like. But I think if you think of this more as a compass heading and a start line, and then it's sort of a path of discovery, and we can do useful things along that path. In my opinion, I think you're better served with those types of concepts or ideas than the build it once, run it forever notions.
Yeah, to me, it just sounds it's exciting because it'll evolve as everything evolves.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
The drive on this is to give you the important things that government gives you today, probably in paper or plastic documents that you have somewhere. They're either in your wallet or they're at home in folders, or they're somewhere. Those things. We think you probably need those things. You needed them in paper and plastic form. Increasingly, for a trustworthy kind of privacy respectful experience with digital services and digital economy, probably going to need those government-y things, digital form, in your hand as well. There's a couple of kind of key considerations in sort of, so I allude to, how does it work under the hood? like what's underneath this thing? There's a couple of key features that we think are important. So one of those is the idea that the entity that issued you with a credential doesn't have to be and may not be aware of the transactions or the services that you're engaging in where you're using the I think most people understand that today. Like if you've checked into a hotel and you've had to kind of show your driver's, the theater of showing your driver's license. I had to do that a couple of weeks ago, but and as I was standing at the counter checking into the hotel, I was pretty confident that when I showed my driver's license to them, the motor vehicle department didn't know that I was checking in. Okay, so that idea we call the phone home. It's like that. Did it call home? Did it go back? Like, does the issuer know? Okay, so the designs that we're talking about, they don't call home. So when you're using the transaction, it's a private transaction between you and the entities you're interacting with, and who gave you the credential. They're not in the flow, and they don't know. Okay, it's been a super hard feature to figure out how to do, right? When you're logging into multiple different websites with your Google ID, the Google login service knows that you're logging into. It's like, oh, it kind of calls home. So that's one. The second important idea is if you look at your paper or plastic credentials, if you go to use them, you're showing the whole thing. It's like, oh, so there's a feature in the digital credentials that's different. It's like you could be asked a question that's just about your last name, or just about your postal code, or it's like, I don't need to know I don't need to know the license number on your permit for, like, that's not my question. My question is, did the municipality issue you a permit and the answer to that question can be yes or no. I don't need to know the name. You're like, I don't. And so there's a capability. One of them is called selective disclosure. Okay, so questions now can be engineered much more precisely for the purpose of doing a better job upholding and respecting privacy. So you don't need to ask people for all of their information. You can sharpen it up and say, no, what's the absolute minimum information that you need in order to make, well, then just ask for that. So that's a selective disclosure capability. And then in some of the designs that I happen to be a fan of, there's a capability that's called zero knowledge proof capability. And so that would be the easiest way to explain that is proof of age type thing. So my question isn't what year, month, and day were you born. That's not my question. My question is, does an authority say that you're over 19? And the answer to that can be yes or no. Okay, so there's a way, the proper use of digital credentials allows us to do some very important things, right? We can improve trustworthiness, we can improve integrity, we can improve security, and at the same time, we can improve how we respect people's privacy as we conduct these transactions. And so I think oftentimes that doesn't really come out necessarily as strongly as as we would hope. I mean, many of those things are quite significant engineering feats to figure that out, and it's part of my talk track in terms of let's make the machines do the things that we need them done, rather than us have to kind of fit into the constraints of the way machines have historically been put together. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, even speed alone of transactions will be much improved, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think, you have your own experience, I have mine. I think it proves it's easier to authorize your way through a flow. I'm still not that good at typing my stuff in on my phone. Like I'm not expert at that. And you think many, many times the data that you're attempting to type into, such and such a form, it's data that you have, like you're not inventing it on the spot. It's like, so if you had that data and it was a credential and you were holding it in a digital wallet on your phone, and you can just, approve, and, it can go. There's also a way that you can go to find the problem side of this equation. So a couple of examples. I'm a British Columbian, so I live here in BC. But you can go to the BC government website and look at the online enrollment process for medical services plan. And there's a digital service there for that. And it's wizardized, right? So it's got the simple leading through the questions. Yeah, question 4. So you go question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. And you're question 4 just about as fast as I just said you're at question 4. Question 4 says, do you have your, and then there's a list of paper documents. It's like, go get them and take a picture of them. And it's like, oh, there it is. Right. Another easy example would be go surf over to the city of Toronto and look at their restaurant licensing process. And you read there's a website, there's instructions for it and everything. And then you just look at the papers that you need and how you have to provide them. And so one of the things I try and encourage people is to learn how to go view the world that way. Right? Because it's often we're just lost in abstractions. Right? It's theories of digital credit. It's like, no. Go look at what people are being asked to do today. It's like, do you see it now? Look at what they're being asked to provide. Look at how they're being asked to provide that information. And then step back and say, did that look right? Like, did that look like it would have the right kind of integrity, security, trustworthiness? Did it do a good job on privacy? It's like, so like for sometimes like, oh, this is an idea that, maybe someday in the future. You're going, no, I want to come back and put a really bright, sharp, shiny light on what people are doing today as they try and fill out the forms to complete the things they need to do. It's like, okay, I think we need to find a better way for people to go about doing those types of things. And so I just want to kind of put a commercial in terms of the, what I would view is the obvious need to make this modernization that we're talking about. But to some extent, the need goes unnoticed because we're just so heavily socialized into doing things the way that we've always done them. And it just kind of it's just like, you mean, my wife and I were interacting with a realtor this week, and I literally took our 2 driver's licenses and put them on my couch and took a photograph of them and sent him the photo. And you're just socialized, like it just flies by, and you don't even stop with that critical kind of mind and kind of go, was that right, or was that? And so, we think there's a need to consider that foundational aspect. Is like, we need a foundation of trust to underpin our economy. We have one. It simply needs to be modernized so that it participates more strongly in the digital era. And so in some sense, you can almost put this together in a way where it's sort of like things can often hide in plain sight. Elephant in the room, I guess, or well, no, because you don't even feel. But you know what I'm getting at is if you can learn to stop yourself a bit and step back and apply critical thinking to what you're about to do or have just done, or what you're about to ask someone to do, and kind of go, did that really look right? Is that really the best way? Now, today, of course, what else are you going to do other than take pictures of paper and plastic documents? It's like, yeah, well, how about we improve that? Why don't we come up with a way for people to have and hold a trustworthy, privacy respectful digital version of the license, the permit, the registration, those things, and then we can begin to modernize the services and make those better as well. So,
thank you. That was fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts. To the listeners, I hope you enjoyed Digital Credentials and Trust. You can connect with me at re.hirschberg@gov.bc.ca or click the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Harry.